Okay, so we'll get right into the seminar now, how to qualify for more rental properties. As I said in the introduction, we have Danielle Di Marco. She's just off camera here, and she's going to do a great presentation on how to get your next real estate investment mortgage, how to put your ducks in a row so you can get it for sure, and tons of other information that you're going to need to know, and it's a great help to real estate investors.
Yeah, awesome.
So before we get started, a little bit about ourselves. I'm Tim Desatel.
Yeah, and I'm Azad Chandler.
And we started Calgary Real Estate Wealth probably 17 years ago to meet a demand from real estate investors who were looking for local information on how to invest in real estate that didn't cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, we were actually tired of watching people go out there, spend thousands of dollars on investment courses. We wanted to give people the education that they need. Real estate has changed our lives. Tim and I became, we were investors first and became realtors, actually to teach people how to invest in real estate. And where we're a little different is we hold our clients' hands through the whole process. So from choosing the property, we work with Danielle for a reason. We started with her, geez, nearly 17, 18 years ago now. She definitely knows what she's doing, working with the right people. We've assembled accountants, we've assembled lawyers, home inspectors, contractors. We've legalized many basement suites out there for our clients. And then we also run a full cash flow analysis on every property we do buy so our clients can continue to grow if they want to. And where we're a little different is we tell people what is possible and what is not. There's a lot of things about investing in real estate that is made easy, or a lot of different strategies that's looked to be made easy. We're the first ones to say, hey, there's no need to do that. You know what, there's an easier way to go about it. So yeah, we do these every 2 weeks. Tonight is all about getting the right financing, which is a key part if you're starting off on investing in real estate. You should know exactly where you're at. And I'm sure, I'm not sure, Danielle, in your presentation, if you're going to go through the components people need to start off understanding their financing. You probably have it. If not, we'll talk about it later anyway. But that is a key part to starting off, is understanding where you're at financially. And if you can't obtain a mortgage, that's not a problem. We have other ways to move you forward, but you should know where you're at.
Moving on now, we'll get into the meat of our seminar, how to qualify for more rental properties. We're going to get Danielle Di Marco up here. She's our mortgage specialist, and she will delve right into it. We're just going to do a little change over here.
Thank you for the introduction. I am Danielle Di Marco, and I am a mortgage broker right here in Calgary. I do specialize in investment financing. So what does that mean? There's 1,000 brokers out there, but a lot of them don't deal with multiple properties and property plans on how to accumulate not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties plus. So it's just a different way of looking at things, different mindsets, and just, you know, looking at things, I guess, really a different way. Okay, so some things we're going to touch on, just introduce myself. My information will be in the end of the presentation, so if you want to reach out at the end of the day, go ahead. We're going to talk about what is a kind of a quote unquote normal mortgage versus an investment financing mortgage. We're going to talk about what we're really going to take into consideration when it comes to mortgage financing and the different mortgage products that as investors you guys have access to, and kind of some neat little tricks of the trade in there as well. So as Tim and Azad mentioned, I've actually been working with them since pretty much day one, which is over 17 years now. So a lot of financing under my belt, a lot of transactions, just to kind of not toot my own horn, but so you know what I'm doing. I am in the top 5% of all of mortgage architects in Canada and #1 in our brokerage. So lots of experience. Ask away any questions you guys have. Azad will monitor the chat, and I'll make sure to answer those. Okay, so normal mortgage. When we're talking about a house that we're going to buy and we're just a regular purchaser, we're talking a lot about paying down our mortgage. There's a lot of people out there that listen to parents and grandparents and things like that, and it's like, pay that down as quick as you can. You don't want to have this debt. Put down 20%. You don't want to pay CMHC. Lowest and best rate is the #1 consideration. So that's kind of when we're in that normal mortgage mindset. When we're talking about investment financing, we're going kind of a different route. Monthly cash flow is a big top consideration. Obviously, if we're turning that property into a rental or purchasing a rental, we want to make sure that we're at least breaking even depending on the market. Mortgage terms are going to be more important oftentimes in the rate. So if you're buying an investment property, is it a flip? Is it a long-term hold? What are we doing with that property? And that's going to determine more so what way we go as far as mortgage financing versus, oh, what's the bottom line rate? And then down payment. So there's also two trains of thought here. So are we looking at minimum down? Do we want to leverage the bank's money? Do we want to keep the majority of our money for ourselves so we can have down payments on 3 properties versus putting it all into one and having no CMHC? So different ways that we need to kind of look at that down payment, because obviously cash is king. If you're looking at doing something with improvements and you don't want to put it in the mortgage or can't for some reason, you need cash to do that. If you're looking at flipping, you do want to put 20% down because that CMHC eats right into those profits off the top. If it's a long-term hold and you want to buy a couple properties, saving your cash for down payment on other properties is going to be where, you know, what you want to focus on. Amortization rates and rental calculations. So these are things that we're going to kind of delve into. Amortizations is one of the big considerations when you're purchasing a rental property. So 30 years, we can now go to 30 years. Some lenders on the B side, so alternative side, will even go longer. What is the benefit of 30 years? Well, again, mom, dad, grandparents might say, oh no, don't do 30 years. The pain, you know, it's going to take you forever to pay that thing off. But when you're an investor, the longer the amortization, the lower the payment. The lower the payment, the more positive your cash flow is. So that's something we want to take into consideration. Keeping in mind to qualifying, we are not just necessarily looking at one property. The more properties we accumulate, the more debt we have. Okay. The more debt we have, or the more properties we own, the more debt we have. The more debt we have, the harder it is to keep qualifying to purchase more and more. So by extending that 30-year amortization out, we lower the payment, we lower our debt load, we keep our debt ratios low. That also helps us when we're qualifying for the next property and the following. And writing off interest. So this is where, again, Tim and Azad mentioned, a great accountant comes in. So on a rental property, you can write off interest. So why not take the 30 years? Yes, it's a bit more interest, but it's also a write-off and you get the other benefits. And again, long-term hold, the goal is not necessarily to pay down the mortgage as fast as possible. It's more about that cash flow position. Okay, so investment property financing. So typically, if you are buying a rental property, so we are telling the bank, hey, we're renting it out, or we're taking on tenants that are already in the property, you're going to have higher interest rates in scenarios like that. Again, try not to focus on the rate. We want to focus on the cash flow. But rental properties, just a quick heads up, their rates are higher than standard mortgage rates. If your mortgage is being set up as a rental property, an investment property financing, you do not have to occupy that home. You can take on existing tenants. So oftentimes we'll see, you know, you're buying a rental from somebody else who already had it rented. There might be tenants in there that are great tenants that you might want to take on. If that's the case, we obviously can't purchase it as an owner occupied or a second home because there's tenants in there. So if we're doing that, we need that 20% down. We have those higher rates if we're doing a rental property. Okay, suited properties versus a legal suite. So I get this question all the time. You know, when we're trying to qualify and we're using rental income to qualify. So let's say you own a home and it's an up-down. And let's say the upper and lower are, it's a legally suited property. I hate the word illegal and legal. They all sound, and illegal, they all sound the same. If it's legally suited, oh, sorry, I must call somebody in here. So has the permitting for legal suites, then we can use rental income from that legal suite. If it's illegal, then we have to just use a whole house rental. So the benefit of a legalized suite is that we have additional income to put into an application. So when you're qualifying, it helps you qualify. So this is a perfect example. If we can rent a whole house for $2,500 to one family, that's the rent we can put in application. If we have a legal suite, we can use $1,000 for the basement, $1,800 for the upper, $800 for the legal carriage suite. So you can see how that rental income just grows, and that helps us qualify. The more income we have in an application, obviously the easier to qualify. And illegal suites, again, we can just use the whole house rental. And so that's what we're looking at when we're talking about qualifying. So those are some of the questions we're going to ask. Market rents versus actual rents. This is really cool. So for those of you that are already owning a property, maybe we're moving out of it and we're going to rent it out, or maybe it's already a rental, but let's say you have a tenant in there from a year ago or 2 years ago that you love, that you haven't upped the rent. Well, maybe you're only getting $2,000 a month of rent, but you could actually get $2,500. We can order this market rent letter. What it does is it says, hey, so-and-so, your property at such and such address could rent for, on average, this much per month. That allows us to use that higher market rent income in a mortgage application versus just what you have it rented for. Or let's say, for example, we'll get into the move up program later on and what that looks like. But let's say you're moving out of your property and into another one and you don't have tenants lined up yet. You're just house hunting. We're just getting pre-approved and maybe we're writing an offer, but you haven't found tenants yet. We don't want to have to provide a lease because a lot of people can't provide a lease when you're moving out of a property. So instead we can use this market rent letter, same thing. So we can use those rents to help us qualify. Rental spreadsheets. Okay, this is like one of my favorites. I get excited about this one. It's not so silly. These are the things that excite a mortgage broker. So every lender uses different ways of qualifying, okay? Every lender has different rules. And one of these things that was introduced probably 3 or 4 years ago now, so it didn't exist before that, is these, what I call these fancy rental sheets. So on an existing home, you might have property taxes, you might have condo fees, you might have what we call heat. It's a standard utility calculation, and a mortgage payment. Maybe your rent covers it, maybe it doesn't, maybe there's extra surplus, maybe you're cash flowing. But when you go into a mortgage application, it's not dollar for dollar. If your expenses are $2,000 and your rent's $2,500, that doesn't mean that, oh, hey, that property's a wash and that debt doesn't count and we don't have to include it. It's very different. The lenders only use a certain percentage of that rental income to offset all of the payments that come along with that property. Okay, so these rental sheets are these fabulous ways of calculating rental income in the most advantageous way possible. These are honestly a massive difference, and knowing which lenders use them, which lenders have the best rental sheets. If you're a condo, sometimes a certain lender's rental sheet is better than another. So knowing all of that is part of that investment financing brokerage background. So this gives you an example. Let's say you have $100,000 a year of income in your application. You own a current home, your mortgage payment's $1,000 a month. You have $2,000 a year of taxes, and you're renting it out for $1,600 a month. You want to purchase a new home for $400,000 and you want to put 5% down. If you are a $100,000 a year income earner, normally your debt ratios would be over the maximum allowable. Okay, so your GDS, which is one ratio, that's your income versus the house you want to buy. Okay, so that GDS has to be below 39. So you can see in a normal way of qualifying, we're at 37. That works. TDS, that takes into consideration any outside debts, which considers that rental property or that property you're moving out of, and your income and the house you want to purchase. That one you can see in this example is at 48. Well, the max is 44. Basically, a broker might say to you, hey, listen, you don't qualify to buy this house. And you walk away and you're sad and you're disappointed, and now you don't have a second property. I'm going to say, hey, let's plug this into one of these fancy rental spreadsheets. Let's do the math. Now your GDS is still 37. That's below the 39, but your TDS is now at 40. Okay, you can go buy this house. So these rental sheets and knowing where to go and how to use them literally can be the difference between qualifying for a property and being told, yes, you can buy, and someone saying to you, no, sorry, you don't qualify. So they're a really, really big component of investment financing now. And the more properties you accumulate, each one of those properties gets put into that rental sheet. So somebody who maybe, is told, no, you can't buy your fifth property. Well, I might look at it and say, oh, well, this lender's rental sheet is better than this one. Let's try this one. Let's plug it in. Let's do the math. Okay, yeah, you can buy your fifth property. So it's a really big difference. Okay, so overall exposure. So this is something that as an investment mortgage broker, I am always taking into consideration. Lenders, again, have different rules. You're gonna have trust companies. I'll throw them under the bus a little bit because most trust companies, they're fabulous. We use them all the time, but they only allow 4 properties usually in your portfolio. So those are the ones that we kind of want to use first if we can. Properties 1, 2, 3, 4, because once we reach property 5, we eliminate all of those lenders from our ability to apply to. We want to save some of those banks that maybe do 5, 6, 7 properties. And then there's a couple companies out there that will allow, 8+ properties in your portfolio. So if we utilize those lenders first, then we're kind of eliminating them from our ability to use them down the road. So we want to look and see, okay, how many properties can we qualify for, but in what order, and which lenders should we be using in what order? So honestly, I had a client who came, I think this was about a year ago, and came to me and they had done some, I think they were on their 3rd property. They owned 3 and wanted to buy a 4th. And whoever they had done their financing through, did a great job, but unfortunately utilized some of these lenders that we needed for properties 4, 5, and 6. And some of these lenders have maximum mortgage amounts and numbers of mortgage you can have with them. So setting it up the way they did caused these people to have a bit of a hurdle. We had to redo a couple of those mortgages, take a couple steps back to get that financing in order so that we could get to properties 5, 6, and 7. So when you're starting out, it's really, really important. You might only be buying your first property. Don't just focus on the rate. You have to focus on the plan of how to accumulate multiple properties. And joint venture, I put a little note in there. So this is what Azad was mentioning earlier. If you can't qualify for a mortgage, we're not going to say to you, hey, you don't qualify, see you later. How can we help you get into the investment game? Maybe a joint venture. Maybe you have cash, you have savings, but you can't qualify. You can partner up with somebody who can qualify. So now, owning 50% of something is better than owning 100% of something, right? So we can always look into that. So this is, yeah, exactly. Weak credit and or can't qualify, or maybe you're the qualifying one, but you don't have the cash and you know somebody who has the cash. So it's a great, great way to partner people up. For financing though, leaving the JV separate, this is important. I will talk to you about lots, but I don't want to know about your JV. Let's just put it that way. You guys are going to handle your JV with your realtors, Tim and Azad, with the lawyers, and that's going to happen separate from the mortgage. As far as the mortgage is concerned, you're just buying that property and there's no JV in place. So, okay, products. This is a big one. This is kind of like the same thing I just talked about as far as lenders. There's certain lenders out there that we want to use in a certain order for certain styles of property and types. The same thing is for products. There's 50 different products out there, let's call it. If you put yourself in the wrong product, it could be the difference between cash flowing and not cash flowing, making money and not making money. So we'll get into a few products here. Okay, rental purchase. We kind of touched on this earlier. If you are purchasing the property as a rental, your intent is to rent it out. You're going to sign off at the lawyer's office that I'm renting this out. You do need a 20% down payment, and that's standard across Canada. It's considered an uninsurable mortgage. We would get a lease or market rents. Again, we had touched on that earlier. We can extend out to 30 years. So as long as you put 20% down, you can have that 30-year amortization. Sometimes there's a net worth requirement in addition to down payment, depending on the lender, and there are slightly higher rates. So the advantage to this is obviously the more down payment you put down, the more you can spend. And 30-year amortization keeps your cash flow better. And one thing that I didn't put on here, but is a big one, is with a rental purchase, you can have multiple units. So you can have up to 4 units and it's okay. So if it's a legally suited property or an illegally suited property or a mother-in-law suite, those are all considered different units. So with a rental property, you can have up to 4 units and you can qualify. When we get into what I call an owner-occupied purchase, this is where you are moving in. Now, this is my disclaimer. Moving in is a general phrase. There is no guideline on how long you have to occupy a property for, okay? There's nothing in the rule book that says 3 months counts, 1 year counts, 1 night counts. As your mortgage broker, if you tell me that you're going to be occupying the property, great, we can do an owner-occupied mortgage. The benefit of owner occupied financing is you can utilize and leverage the bank's money. We can put as little as 5% down. So if you only have 5% down payment, this would be the way to do it. Funny enough, it sounds backwards, but if you have less than 20% down payment, you actually have access to better mortgage rates. So with 5% down, you get lower rates. Obviously, your cash flow isn't going to be as good because you're going to have a higher mortgage. But again, you can have multiple units as well, so up to 4 units. So if you're looking at a fourplex, as long as you are occupying one of those 4 units, we can do an owner occupied purchase, okay? Minimal down payment like we touched on. And then in this, I can't remember if I have the move up program later on or not. I'm gonna hold off on the move up program. And if I don't have a slide, just remind me because we'll touch on that. But that's how you set up owner occupied. So again, benefits are lower rates, leverage the bank's money, and you can have up to those 4 units again. Drawbacks are obviously gonna be, you have the CNHC insurance premium if you put less than 20% down, and your cash flow is gonna be a little bit less. Keeping in mind, you can still put 20% down on an owner occupied purchase as well. You don't have to put less than 20%.
Question?
Yeah.
How long do you have to live in your existing home before you turn it to a rental to take advantage of this?
Yeah, so the question was, how long do you have to have lived in your existing home before you can turn it into a rental? And like I touched on before, there is no, it's perfect. There is no rule. So if you've been in there now, but this is where it kind of gets into a gray area because you don't want to get red flagged by a lender. And this has happened before. If you buy a property and you move in January, and then you go move out in July, and then you go move out in October, and then you go move out next January, the insurer is going to look at us and say, whoa. They're like, that's 4 owner occupied homes in 12 months. We're not going to do it. So it's case by case, really. It depends. I'll look at, and that's where my judgment kind of comes in. I'll look and see, okay, well, did you purchase the original one with less than 20% or more than 20%? Did you purchase one of them as rental or all of them as owner occupied? And then we'll kind of guide you on timing. So I do have clients where I'll take an application and I'll look and I'll say, hey, if you want to do the move up program or owner occupied purchase, we have to wait 4 to 6 months. Or we can do it now. And that's part of where I'll come in and provide you some guidance on that. So that's a really good question. There is no strict rule, but when you get into more properties, the more owner occupied you do, the less they start to believe that you're actually owner occupied these properties. Second home. Okay, so this one is a great option for anybody that already owns a pretty big home. So if you think about it, if you were living in a $700,000 single family home in a residential area, it's going to be tough for us to do an owner occupied purchase on a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo downtown, unless we can explain and give good reasoning as to why we're downsizing. So a second home purchase allows us to, again, utilize and leverage the bank's money as little as 5% down payment. You do have to sign at the lawyer's office that your intent, and I strongly use the word intent, is to use the home for personal use and not rent it out. Same as owner occupied, there is no guideline on how long you have to use that home for your personal use and then when you can turn it into a rental down the road. So we can do a second home with minimum down. We don't have to move into it. And then the other thing is lower rates. So the same as the owner occupied, we get the lower rates on a second home. Have to sign off as though it's a second home. And here's where the difference, the biggest difference is, and this is where we run into, always making sure that, Tim is and myself are communicating. On a second home, you can only have 1 unit. And by 1 unit, that means no illegal suites, no legal suites, and no mother-in-law suites. So a mother-in-law suites counts. If you've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-master suite property, that's not going to fit as a second home. A second home is very strictly 1 unit. And the reason they do that is because they don't want people buying second homes as rentals, right? So they're trying to kind of control that. So by 1 unit, I mean even a mother-in-law suite counts as a unit, according to a second home. And we actually ran into that about 3 years ago, maybe on one property where they dinged us because the pictures on the appraisal showed that there was a suite, mother-in-law suite in the basement. So we couldn't do it as a second home. So if you do want a property where you can have an up-down, a second home might not work for that. Okay, so refinancing. This is another really great way of setting up investment financing and something we want to always consider. If we get too far down the road, and let's say we own 5-6 properties, it gets more difficult to go back to property one and pull that equity out. So we're always reevaluating, when should we be pulling equity out of our properties that we already own? Maybe it's after property 2, we go back to property 1 and refinance. Maybe it's after property 4, we go back. So that's going to be part of what we're looking at when we're looking at your portfolio, is not only when should we be purchasing and what should we be purchasing, but when should we be going back and redoing those existing mortgages and taking out that equity. As we all know, you guys touched on it earlier, property values are really high in Calgary right now. There's a lot of people who own properties where we want to be going back before that next purchase so that we can qualify to access that equity. Because again, the more properties we own, the more debt we have, the harder to qualify. So we want to be pulling out that equity before we get too far along in the program. We can in Canada refinance up to 80% of a property value. That can be a combination of mortgage, home equity, line of credit, multiple components. So those are things we'll talk about depending on the person and your plan and how it all fits. We can take that equity is considered yours. You can use that for a down payment on another property, no questions asked. So we don't have to source the debt, we don't have to get gift letters, it's not borrowed down payment, it's considered your own money. And then one of the other things that we look at when we're refinancing is not just pulling out that equity, but also restructuring that mortgage. So a lot of people don't realize, but to refinance, you don't even have to pull out technically $1. We can just leave your mortgage as is if there's not enough equity maybe, but we can extend that amortization back out to 30 years. And again, by extending that out, we improve cash flow, we help us qualify for additional properties down the road. So it's a great strategy, but if we wait until the very end to try and do it, sometimes we don't qualify anymore. Purchase plus improvements. So this is a really, really neat program. It's, a lot of people, I think they talk about it, but they don't really understand it, but it's a fabulous program. So it is a way for you to purchase a property and incorporate any improvements you want to do into the mortgage. So let's say you're buying something that is a little bit run down, you need to do a fixer upper, or let's say you do purchase a property that has a walkout basement and you want to turn that basement into a legal suite. We can work all of those improvements into the mortgage. So you're not coming up with cash out of pocket. It is a very unique program. There are rules, obviously, little asterisks on what you can and can't do. Typically, it's about 40,000 we can add in. Having said that, we've done up to 150,000. So there are exceptions. There are ways to do it. The lenders don't love structural changes. So if we're tearing down something and building a second story, that won't fit in this program. But if we're renovating a kitchen, a bathroom, and legalizing a basement suite, we can absolutely access this program. How it works is you would take possession of the house and then you have up to 120 days to complete the work that's being done. You come up with the payment upfront, but it doesn't matter. Credit card, line of credit, borrowed from family, savings, doesn't matter how you pay your contractor. And then we send an inspector in at the end once it's complete. As long as the inspector checks off the boxes and said, yeah, you did all the work, you get that money back. So let's say you add in 40,000, at the end of the day, you get 40,000 back. So it's in your pocket. It's a way to work those into your mortgage. You do need to get quotes up front. If you are thinking purchase plus improvements, it's really important to let Tim and Azad know, because they will schedule, for example, second viewings or third viewings in there so you can bring your contractors through up front to get a quote. Anything I missed on purchase plus?
It's all timing. So
Yeah.
we have to get the quote in during the conditional period.
Yes.
And then it takes the contractors, we found, up to 3 days to run their numbers.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do purchase plus, you'll know. You walk into a property and if you're like, I gotta do this, and this, Tim and Azad are gonna say, hey, call Danielle and ask about purchase plus. And then we'll give you some more instructions because it's a really in-depth program and we can get into it. But the general gist is saving your money, your cash to use for down payments on additional properties rather than using it to do those improvements in the home. So we can work them into the mortgage.
Question.
Yeah.
Is that, did I miss, is it a 5% down?
So the question was, can we do 5% on Purchase Plus? Yes, you can. So Purchase Plus applies to, there's only a couple lenders that will do it on rentals, but everybody will really do it on second homes and owner occupies. And yeah, the minimum down payment is 5%. So I think I might have an example in here actually. Nope, I didn't. Okay, sorry. So to give you an idea though, let's say you bought a property for 400,000. And then let's say you said there's going to be 40,000 of improvements. It's now 440 in the eyes of the bank. Your 5% down payment's 22,000. So you are borrowing 95% of the total price, which is the price plus the improvements. And so then at the end of the day, again, you're getting that money back in your pocket. Okay. So I didn't have a move up program slide in here. So I do want to touch on the move up program. So when we are looking at financing for investors, the most advantageous way to qualify is what we call the move up program. Starting with maybe a condo, going to a townhouse, going to a duplex, going to a single family, and ending up in your big, long-term family dream home. If we do it that way, every time we move out of a property and into the next one, we can use that fancy rental sheet on the property that we're moving out of. It is a way, way, way better way of qualifying than if we're purchasing a rental. So how the rental income is calculated by the lenders when the property we're purchasing is a rental is way less than one that we already own or are moving out of. And if you think about it, if you buy a condo and you put 5% down, let's say you live there for 6 months, you move on to your duplex. Now you're getting rental income for that. You only used 5% of your own money. So now you still have savings to put 5% down again on this next property. We can use that fancy rental sheet on the property we just moved out of to help us qualify for this one. Then let's say a year later, you move out of this one and into the next one. Well, now we can use the fancy rental sheet on property 1 and property 2 and put 5% down again on the third property. So now you have a total of 5, 15% of money that you've used to purchase 3 properties. You have potentially 3 rental incomes coming in, and you are building your wealth with 3 different properties versus putting all of that 15% into just one property. Yeah.
Let's say your first investment that you buy is a 4-plex.
Yeah.
Then what happens? Are you locked in just in one property, or are you able to move into the next?
Yeah, so the question was, if your first property is a 4-plex,
Yeah.
are you locked into that one property? Can you purchase more?
Yeah.
You can absolutely purchase more. So a 4-plex is considered 4 units. So as long as you occupy one, let's say you bought it as owner occupied, we can use rental income on the 3 and then show you living in 1. Then you can move out of the 4-plex into a duplex or a single family home.
At a
We can
5%
use-
or 20?
Yeah, at 5%.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it doesn't have to be a single house. I think earlier you
Correct.
mentioned with no rental units, nothing has to be.
On an existing one you already own,
Yeah.
it's fine. It's on the ones you're
The next
purchasing.
one.
Yeah, if you're purchasing a second home, it can only have 1 unit. If you're purchasing owner occupied or rental, it can have up to 4. On ones you already own, they just count as properties you already own and we just plug them into a rental sheet. Yeah, it's just that
So if you
4-plex.
choose a 4-plex,
Yeah.
and then my next home, I want to do 4-plex.
So
Then
Just to butt in there, you're better off getting a duplex, an old duplex, and you can get them with unfinished basements. Go in, finish the basements, turn it into a 4-plex, because then that property is going to be worth 200,000-300,000 more. Move into it, you could 5% down, and then you could actually refinance after it, move back
Yeah.
out, and do it again.
I'm not sure if you guys heard that, but as that's just kind of talking about, instead of doing a 4-plex and then a 4-plex, try and find a duplex that's illegal, put your money into it, legalize it, move out, move into the next one. It's kind of, you gain a little bit more appreciation in a property like that. But to answer your question directly, 4-plex to 4-plex, the lender is going to have a hard time believing you're moving out of 1 out of 4 units into 1 out of 4 units. You have to give them a reason as to why you're moving. So if you're moving from a 4-plex, we can say, hey, having 3 neighbors and not enough parking and this, we want to move into a duplex or a townhouse. That makes sense. But moving from a fourplex to a fourplex, they won't let you. Yeah, they'll kind of say red flag, and they'll make you put 20% down on the second. Yeah.
Quick question on mine.
Yeah.
Sammy's got a question. Can I do purchase plus improvements with my current home, which would be a
Gotcha. Yeah, so
Great.
Sammy's question, purchase plus improvements on your current home. When you already own the home, any financing we do to it is going to just be called a refinance. So essentially what we would do, Sammy, let's say your house is worth 500,000 and your current mortgage is 300,000. We can refinance up to 80%. So we can take a $400,000 mortgage. You owe 300, that gives you 100,000 of that equity. You can take that 100,000 and do all the improvements that you want, or you could buy a boat, which we don't recommend, or you could invest it in the next property and use it for down payment. So when you already own the home, that equity in there is your money. So as long as you have enough equity, you can pull it out and do any improvements you want.
So
Yeah.
while we're on that, we'll talk about the BRRRR strategy because
Yes.
the BRRRR is very popular.
Yep.
If everyone out there's can hear me, the BRRRR is buy.
Stand over here so they can hear you. Can they hear you? I don't know.
The BRRRR is buy, renovate, rent out, repeat, and refinance. So
Yeah.
refinance and then repeat. So with the BRRRR strategy, quick question. What kind of mortgage would you put them into if they're doing the BRRRR strategy? You know you're going to refinance within
Yes.
3 to 6 years.
Great question. So on the BRRRR strategy, we are looking at redoing the mortgage eventually. So there's a couple lenders out there that have these great multi-component products. Okay, so we could do a mortgage, a regular mortgage at one of these lenders, and then you renovate, refinance, and we can add on a second component. So for example, somebody who bought 2 years ago, this is fabulous. Nobody wants to lose their 2% interest rate right now, right?
Yeah.
So we can refinance post renovation and we can pull out the equity in the form of a second component. That first component doesn't get touched. You can keep your 2% rate, your existing payment, nothing changes, no penalty. We add on a second component at today's money, today's rate, today's payment. You have 2 payments on it, but it's not a second mortgage. You're not paying 10%. You're getting best rates again on a second component. So when we do it that way, if you know you're doing a BRRRR strategy on a property, it's really important to tell your mortgage broker, because then we will recommend a product like that. Or let's say we don't want to use that type of lender, we want to save that lender, there's variable rates. Variable rates come with the smallest penalty possible of just 3 months of interest. So we can put you into a property like that, or a mortgage like that, where there's only 3 months of interest. So a year down the road, once you've rented and you're going to refinance, your penalty is super small and we can redo the whole mortgage. So there's different strategies, but yes, we would not put you into a 5-year fixed trust company mortgage where in a year you're done your renos and you want to refinance. And now all of a sudden we have a $15,000 penalty to break that mortgage. Same thing that touches on is a flip. If you're going to do a flip, we're going to put 20% down ideally, because otherwise that CMHC cost eats into dollar for dollar your profits. And we're also same thing, going to put you into either an open, a home equity line, or a variable. We're not going to put you into a 3, 4, 5-year fix, because when you go turn around and flip that property, you need that penalty to be as small as possible so that it's not eating into your profits. So the intent of the property is just as important as the rate. And that's where, when you're house hunting, we usually typically set it up when we're doing the original process as though we're all long-term holds. And then obviously once you start house hunting, if you find something that's more of a flip, hey Danielle, I found a flip, what do you recommend? And then I will adjust your investment strategy and how we've set it up and change lenders and figure it all out. So each of my clients has a good file with spreadsheets and notes and what lenders are we going to, in what order and why. And then if we decide to make an adjustment in the middle, I just go back to that, make some adjustments and tweaks, and come back to you with a new tentative plan. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can we touch base on why legal suite of properties help people qualify for more rental properties?
Yeah, we kind of did back at the beginning,
Yeah.
but really, like if I go back, I don't know how to go back to that slide, but I kind of had that slide where, if you can rent a whole house for $2,500, but you can instead rent a basement an upper, and a carriage suite, if all of those are legalized, the lenders will use all three of those suites and add that rental income up. Maybe we can get 3,000 a month or 3,200 a month of rent instead of just 2,500. So obviously the more rent that we can get, that helps our application because we have more income in the application and it offsets the debt. So it helps us qualify for a higher price. So again, purchase plus improvements. You go buy something, illegal suite, you pay a little bit less money for it, you get a deal, you do your purchase plus improvements, you legalize that suite, you turn around, we go buy another one. Now we're using upper rents and lower rents. You've put the improvements into your mortgage and you've only put 5% down. Now you're moving on to the next property and you've utilized the least amount of your cash and you've maximized the most amount of your rental income. And that's kind of a great way of doing it. Yeah, go ahead.
Does it make sense in the work program, start off with an apartment style condo?
Yeah.
Then move into the second property. Does it make sense to have this, not sell the, it doesn't make sense to not sell the first condo? Is there any investment or?
So we always,
Do you want me to repeat?
repeat
Yeah, so
the
the question was in the move up program, does it make sense if you start with like an apartment condo and then move up from there? And rather than selling that first property, keep that first property. Is that the right?
So more in terms of the investment perspective. So let's say I have an apartment style condo and the second one I buy, let's say it's a townhouse.
Yeah.
But I want to hold on to the
Condo,
for
yeah.
the long term.
Yeah, so.
Both long term.
Yeah.
So the question was, we actually had a meeting with the helicopter pilot today, Julian, who we do this for all of our clients that come down here. We work out a plan for them when they're starting off. Julian moved here from Hawaii. He was doing helicopter tours in Hawaii. He's now doing helicopter tours in BC or somewhere. Heli skiing, is it? Heli skiing. Anyway, he's renting right now, he's been following us on YouTube and follows us. He's on there tonight, I think. And we advised him today to basically start off with a condo. And when you're buying that condo, just make sure that the condo can rent out for enough to cover its cost when you move out. So the key is with condos, it's tough because condo fees are high, but you have to get into a condo building or an apartment that's appealing enough that people will pay top dollar. And maybe, we're seeing people put furniture back into condos and renting them furnished because people are moving here. We had 150,000 people move to Calgary last year and people were moving here with nothing. So, we just did a house. We got a house in the market right now in Harbour Lake that is fully rented. It should really, Tim, rent for 2,300, 2,400, and it's getting like 3,700. So you have to think out of the box. I know a lot of people out there are thinking, prices are high. How do we invest? How do we make money? Well, you have to do crazy things. If you have to do student rentals, if you have to put 2 students into a condo and it maximizes, and it's fully furnished, we're seeing students pay, they're so desperate, they'll pay for premium rentals and you can cash flow no problem. So it's just about getting creative, once again, being around like-minded people and working out a solution. But Tim and I were the first realtors that will tell you never, ever, ever sell. You only sell if, right now, I just sold a property and I'm telling you never sell, but I sold because nobody's selling. So if nobody's selling, guess what? You're going to get maximum price for it. And this property, Tim could tell you it needed work. Tim walked through and he was like, geez, so if you're going to get a premium amount out of that property, or if it's a condo and you're tired of the condo fees, yes, you would take that money and then upgrade your portfolio. And if you've been following us for a while, when I started off, when I moved to this country, I owned a few properties. I owned a bunch of properties in the Northeast. I no longer own them in the Northeast because I don't have to. And Tim and I were just talking about it today. If that's your price point, like if that's, a lot of people have been priced out of the market. And when I moved here, I didn't have a price point because I couldn't get a mortgage and I couldn't, and I didn't have any money. So I did joint ventures, right? So I had no choice. I bought properties on 14th Street, one of the busy streets in Collingwood there, going up the hill in the Northeast. And guess what? All those properties went up $100,000. So if you're sitting there thinking, we hear this all the time, I don't want to be in the Northeast. Guess what? The Northeast is going to go through the roof, okay? Because the majority of people are moving, have family out there. And everything this side of Deerfoot, on the west side of Deerfoot, Tim, it's got to be over 650,000 now just for a standalone bungalow. So if people don't have that, young families, and guess what? It's just gonna beautify the Northeast. There's a new, I think Chipotle is in the Northeast, and my kids have been like in the States and they're like, Dad, why don't we have a Chipotle in the West? You know, they get everything in the Northeast. It's because so many people are moving there, so it's just going to get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, a condo calculates differently when we're calculating rental income. Obviously condo fees play a factor. So the kind of ongoing thing right now is if you have a problem property, now is the time to sell, right? Because people are scooping up properties. So if you, like to answer your question, if you have a condo where the condo fees are going up and up and up, and it's no longer cash flowing, that's, you're probably going to contact him and his ad and sell that versus holding on to it as a rental. But if you've got a property that's a great condo and it is cash flowing and it's doing really well, then you don't need to sell it and you might not want to sell it. So I think it's more so property specific than it is just saying, if I have a condo, should I sell? I would say it's more property specific. If you have a problem condo, they're probably going to say, hey, now's the time to sell because there's no supply and so much demand that somebody's going to take it off of your hands. But if it's a great condo and it's working for you, then hold on to it. Kind of a funny fact I read was by 2030, Canada needs 800, I think it was 800,000 housing starts a year to accommodate for immigration and our demand. Right now we're at 250,000 across Canada. So the amount of new housing starts that we need is insane. Getting into the market, like Azad said, whether it's the Northeast, the Southeast, whatever it is,
Or one bedroom.
or a one-bedroom condo, Calgary is now in that market where we're just growing and growing and growing, and our immigration is not slowing down. They don't foresee it slowing down. We've got tech companies coming in. The demand is there, and there is no supply. So getting into the market is better than standing on the sides and kind of, you know, waiting 2, 3, 4 years or saving up that 20% down payment. Get in with 5% because at least that property is building equity and someone else is paying down your mortgage. And at the end of the day, you can sell or refinance, take that equity out and continue moving on in your investment journey. So getting in is key. I always say this for any investors, if you're waiting for rates to drop, don't. As rates drop, more people get into the market. The more people in the market, the more demand. The more demand, the less supply. The less supply, the higher the house prices go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's cash flow.
It is totally, yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
one last thing. If anyone's got any questions, people in the room, we're sticking around anyway, so you could get us here. But anyone's got any questions online, just throw it in the chat right now. We'll have a look at it. And just one last thing for everybody out there that does own rental properties, because we know that people that have been following us, they do have equity, Danielle, in their homes. And we know people are doing it tough with interest rates going up, inflation. I mean, the cost of meat, I'm turning vegetarian, it's so expensive.
You are?
No, I'm not. Anyway, you know what? If you've got that equity in your property, you can refinance it. It's tax-free money. And we always say this to investors, you have to have fun or it's not worth it. Like, and the main reason why Tim and I invest in real estate was to do all of those nice things, you know, send kids to better schools, drive a nicer car, go on more holidays, stuff like that. And you know, I used to think it was going backwards if you have to refinance. It's really not. You have these properties, it's tax-free money, and you can take your money out, continue what you're doing. You can reinvest some of it as well.
So if you think about it too, you're not taking your property with you when you leave.
Yeah, exactly.
You really aren't, right? So if it's renting and it's cash flowing and you can pull out that equity, whether it's like you said, to have fun or buy more properties and plan for retirement or whatever your goals are, that money is your money.
Yeah.
It's rates at still where we're at right now, around 5%. They're still not bad rates and you can still cash flow. So taking that equity, utilizing it, investing in additional properties, things like that. Refinancing is not, there should be no negative connotation to
Yeah,
refinancing.
and Daniel, especially for the young people out there, I know when I started off investing, my threshold for how leveraged up I should be was a lot more than I am now because I'm a bit older and I've got 3 kids. But you know what? We always kind of say you have to be comfortable, and you can refinance up to the point where the property is still cash flowing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we don't have to go all the way to.
you don't have to,
80%.
you don't have to take it all out unless you've got good plans with that. So we want to stress that out. I'll just double check if there's any questions. No, there isn't. So Danielle's details are going to be, are they on the next slide, Danielle, or were they up there already? Let me have a look.
Let's see.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
get.
I'll let you.
So
yeah,
we'll
you're
finish
the
off
tech
quickly.
guy.
We'll finish up quickly,
Perfect.
and if anyone does have questions, we can chat here, Tim, quickly. So we'll just quickly finish off here.
Did you answer those?
Yeah, I answered those ones. We're just going to get Danielle's card. You could take a photo of it.
They're not in there.
They're not on there. Okay.
Usually you have it earlier, but like.
Yeah,
put it in
oh,
the
yeah.
chat, I can put it in.
Yeah, you can type in that one then. Okay, so we're going to quickly give.
Actually, just one more thing on demand. We were talking about, Azad and Danielle were talking about, get in now. I was talking to another realtor in this office earlier today, and he had these very, very difficult clients. They'd gone after a bunch of houses and they kept on going in too low, too low, too low. Well, we're not in that kind of market right now. And what will happen to these guys is they'll eventually get priced out of the market. They're going after a specific price point, single family home around 600,000. But the issue is, as we showed in our market report earlier, our market update earlier, is that $600,000 home is going to be worth $700,000 in about 2 years. So we have clients like this that are sitting on the sidelines now because last year and the year before, they kept hoping for the market to go down so that they can buy a property that they wanted at a certain price. But the way the market conditions are in Calgary and in Canada is that we're going up and up and up. And people were talking about, or to this realtor was talking about how, well, Toronto, the prices have dropped 20% in the last year. That may be, but in the last 5 years, they went, or the last 8 to 10 years, they went up 100%. So they went up 100 and they dropped 20. They're still way higher than they have been historically. And what's happening is Vancouver and Toronto are turning around. They dipped a bit when interest rates spiked, and now they're turning around and going up again. So because of this immigration that we're getting, the high demand, we're seeing prices go up, and we don't see them going down, lest there be any, some shock to the market. But we don't see them going down anytime soon.
Yeah, we actually moved, I think we're at 572,000 average in Calgary today. Tim and I always said about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that we should be at 650,000. And now we've moved the goalpost to 700,000, and we even see it going past there. So if you're sitting there and you're wondering, should you be investing in real estate? We're nowhere near where this city's going to go. And we study different markets actually around the world to see where their markets have gone. And Calgary just sets up to be one of those cities where people are just going to keep moving here. We've got the infrastructure. We've got a whole video on our Crew TV that you should watch. But the next thing I want to show you guys before I get to it, Danielle did put her email address and phone number there. Write that down. This is a free giveaway for attending tonight. 1 million reasons to buy real estate. You can simply download it from our website, crewinvesting.com. It's a good read. It's a short read, and it goes through what Tim's actually talking about. It goes through property cycles. And right now, we've just started in the last year and a half. Not a year, probably.
Since COVID ended.
Since COVID ended, we've started our new property cycle here in Calgary. And it actually it gives you all the core fundamentals of understanding why you should be investing in real estate.
And it shows you, it graphically illustrates the 3 rates of return that we get in real estate, which is property appreciation, mortgage pay down, and cash flow from your rent. And it tells you exactly, you can actually predict what you're going to make by using historical averages and by using your mortgage pay down. If you get a 25-year mortgage, you know that mortgage is going to be paid down in 25 years. So you can actually predict how much equity you're going to have at the end of those 25 years. And this book really gets into it. And like as I said, it's free, so it's a good download to have.
Yeah. Next, we did write another book. It's called Fearless Real Estate. We wrote this during COVID because we weren't doing anything like everybody else. And it's a really, really cool book. You can see there's lots of people on the front. The reason why there's lots of people, we want to show you what our clients have actually done so you can replicate it and see how they've done it as well. It goes through many topics like raising capital, using hard money, doing the BRRRR strategy, doing Airbnbs, doing flips. It also goes through joint ventures in detail. It also goes through legalizing a basement suite. So any of those topics that you're thinking about, we love this book. We're so proud of it. And every single person that's read it said it's awesome. So I'm not even making that up.
Yeah, and my favorite part about it is it tells a lot of our client stories. So our clients that have done the strategies that, as I mentioned, we go through it. We tell you exactly how they did it, how much money they made, and it's their successes that we're showcasing in this book. We talk a little bit about ourselves, but most of the stories are about our clients, which is why we put them on the cover, because we wanted to showcase what they're doing and the success that they're having.
Yeah, next is our course. You do not have to do this to work with us. We have many people that just start off with us, but this is for people that want to fast track their wealth with real estate. You basically get everything from goal setting to working out the right strategy for yourself. And then it goes through 100 hours of content that you can learn on your own wherever you are in the world. We've got people doing it from all over. It's $97 a month, and you get to cancel anytime you want, which we think is awesome because we never want to take really money from people. We just wanted to pay for our hosting for that.
Yeah, and we designed it to be Canada specific, more specifically Alberta. So everything that we've got in there could be used right now in the Calgary market. So whatever strategy you want to use, we teach you how to do it in there. Plus we have all kinds of forms and guides and checklists, everything you need to get your real estate investment business started, or if you've already got one going, to keep it going and take it to the next level.
Yeah. Next, if you want to see what our clients, how they've achieved, just go on Crew TV, Calgary Real Estate Wealth YouTube channel, and you can actually see from people that are succeeding today from real estate and how it's changing their lives. They're real stories, they're real people. We're not editing these videos at all. It's raw content.
Yeah, they're great interviews from people just like the people in this room, online, just regular people who are making tons of money investing in real estate. And we interview them in here, and you'll be able to see all their stories just by logging on.
Okay, so we do this every 2 weeks. We're just shy, 18 people shy of 6,000 investors on our meetup group. Please go to work tomorrow or school or whatever you're doing. Tell your friends about us. Tell them to join our meetup. It's free. And we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Once again, we do hybrid sessions where they're in person or at home. And if you do come in person, you get to meet us and see if we're as real as we are online, I guess. And you get to ask us questions as well.
Yeah, so the next step is if you want to meet with us, you want to find out where you're going, where you're at right now in your real estate investment business, just take our emails down. That's the best way to get a hold of us. Send us an email. We can set up a one-on-one. We can meet you in our boardroom here, or we can do a Zoom call, meet you online, whichever you prefer. But the first step we do is we meet with you and we sort of plot out a plan of where you want to be and how to get there.
Yeah. Hope everybody liked it, and see you soon.
Thanks, guys.